Think of that line. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. Basically, he's saying he doesn't even know what is going to be happening to him. He's going to take the deal. End of story. Or there are going to be consequences. There's so much stated in that line. Brilliantly written, but brilliantly delivered. He didn't get mad. It was just matter of fact. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. He was so positive that he was going to win. Unbelievable. You don't keep a man waiting. The only time you do is when you want to say something, when you want to say F you. How many of you right now can guess where that line came from? Just a great classic line. Where are you going to think of something like that? But is it gangster? Top gangster stuff. You better believe it. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. And as always, my friends, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that. Well, I have something different today. Well, not really different. I know so many of you have asked me, Michael, when are you going to do more movie reviews? And I said I'm going to get to it. Went through just about all the mob movies that are worth reviewing out there, but I'm going to start to be doing some other movie reviews, basically crime related, because I think that's what you like. But I'm going to do something different today. There are so many great quotes from so many of the mob movies that most of you are familiar with. I came across an article, and I want to talk about 10 of the greatest quotes, according to this article, from all the different mob movies. Some of you are going to disagree with that. Some of you are going to agree. I have my own opinion, but it's a good article. I think you're going to enjoy it. Let's go through it. Let's face it. You know, many of these mob movies, they're just iconic, and some of the lines that come out of them and the way they're delivered are just great. It sticks with you. You don't forget them. How many times have you heard, I'm going to make you an offer you shouldn't refuse? I use the line, brilliant. And there's so many others. I love Chaz Palminteri's line, now you can't leave. Brilliant. Remember that scene? Just unbelievably brilliant. But we're going to go through all of that. First of all, I just want to say something. For all of you people that enjoyed my video with Trax, the jeweler, Max, he did give me this piece. He brought it. He's a classy young man. I got to tell you that. He brought me this beautiful piece, and I don't wear a lot of bling. I don't know why. I've just never been a real jewelry guy myself, but this one really caught my eye. I liked it a lot. So my wife was kind of surprised when I picked it. He gave me 3 choices. And I said, no, I'm going to take this one. It really stands out, and I really like it. So that was from Trax. Watch the video. It's a very interesting conversation he and I had. I think you're going to enjoy it. But I just wanted to point that out. He's a very classy young man. I'm going to get all my jewelry from him right now. Trax, many of you know him. A lot of great comments about the video. I think you'll enjoy it. Something different than we normally do. So let's get to these, 10 great quotes. Let me tell you something. There's so many brilliant quotes from so many movies that you just don't forget. And look, you gotta say there's 2 things. Number 1, a great writer, and number 2, the guy or the person that's delivering the line is terrific. And it all, they both kind of mesh together. It's got to be a great line. It's got to be delivered properly. And we see so many of them in so many of these brilliant films. So I'm going to read this article. I think you're going to enjoy it. I'll give you my take on some of it. Let's see if you agree or disagree in the comment section. Michael, I agree. I don't like that line. I didn't like the movie. Whatever. Tell me what your comments are. I'm sure most of them are going to be good because these are iconic lines in all of these movies. So it's the 10 best quotes in gangster movies ranked. We're going to go from 10 down to 1. For decades now, movies about gangsters have been exceedingly popular, no doubt about that, and some of the very best gangster movies also rank among the greatest films for any genre of all time. Come on, Godfather 1 and 2, so many of them are brilliant. Gangster movies can be seen as subgenre of the crime genre, and by the way, crime drama, true crime, is like the biggest genre on television and cable and streaming platforms. It's all about crime. People want to hear about it. They want to watch it. It's true crime and even, fictional crime, but it's the biggest genre without a doubt. Gangster movies can be seen as subgenre of the crime drama, with such films tending to focus on organized crime, of course, conflicts between or within gangs, and explorations of rules and regulations that exist within unofficial, illegal groups not recognized by the law. Organized crime. Some gangster movie characters are defined by the way they can talk a mile a minute. Think Joe Pesci. He's brilliant, you gotta say. In every film, he's brilliant. And some are much quieter. Think of Michael Corleone in The Godfather. Much quieter, more subdued. Even Don Corleone. Never really raised his voice one time in the wedding scene. Remember when he got mad at, the singer at that point in time? But very, very low key normally. More calculating and far more selective with words they choose to speak. Both kinds of characters and all those in between mean that gangster movies are a great source of quotable lines of dialogue. The following intends to cherry pick some of the absolute best of the best with a limit of one quote per movie to keep things interesting. Otherwise, we could be here all day reciting just about everything that comes out of Tony Montana's mouth in Scarface. Come on, people. Was Al Pacino brilliant in that movie? He even had the accent. Even though it was kind of fake, it wasn't fake for him. The way he pulled it off, Pacino was brilliant in that movie. I got to say it, yeah. And so many of his lines, his expressions, his delivery, just brilliant. Got to say it. All right, here's number 10. You don't keep a man waiting. The only time you do is when you want to say something, when you want to say F you. How many of you right now can guess where that line came from? I could, because I love the scene. Okay, if you do it, put it in the comments right now. My friends, I know something about having power. Whether it's on the streets or in the media, it's all about who controls the narrative. And right now, the mainstream media is trying to control yours, whether you realize it or not. I've been using this platform called Ground News, and it's completely changed how I look at the news. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Remember the Hunter Biden pardon story? How can we forget it? It was everywhere. Well, over 1,000 news sources covered that same story, but watch what happens when we compare headlines from the different outlets. You see how each one spins it differently? That's what makes Ground News different. They're the only platform that lets you see exactly how the media machine works, and yes, it is a machine. They break down the political bias of every source. They show you which stories are being buried by different sides, and this is crucial. They expose who actually owns these news organizations, and that makes a difference, a big difference in how it's reported. In today's world, you can't afford to be in the dark. Ground News gives you something invaluable, and that is the ability to see through the smoke and mirrors and the gaslighting of mainstream media. Right now, you can get the same tools I use for half price. Just go to ground.news/MF or scan this QR code where you'll get 40% off their premium Vantage plan. Come on, that's less than a cup of coffee for the same tools I use to stay informed. With everything that's happening in our country right now, so much going on, you need to see the full picture, not just what they want you to see. So don't wait on this. Take control of your information today. You want to be in the know the right way? Get to Ground News. It's an offer that you shouldn't refuse. But if not, let me refresh your memory. It's from The Irishman. Remember when Al Pacino again played Jimmy Hoffa? I thought brilliantly. Some people say he overacted. I thought he was brilliant as Hoffa in that movie. And remember, Tony Pro comes to meeting. It's in the middle of the summer. Pacino, Hoffa's there waiting. He's late. Hoffa can't stand anybody being late. Tony Pro walks in. Hoffa's dressed in a suit. It's probably 100 degrees out. It's Florida in the middle of the summer. And Tony Pro comes in shorts. And Hoffa's already aggravated. You got here so late. You keep me waiting. It's a sign of disrespect. And then he looks at him and says, that's how you dress for a meeting? You come in shorts for a meeting? You don't wear a suit? And Tony Pro says, well, it's hot outside. It's 90 degrees outside. I don't care. You're coming to him. Just a brilliant scene that ends up with them fighting on the floor, if you remember. They go after one another. But this was the line. You don't keep a man waiting. The only time you do is when you want to say something, when you want to say F you. Let me tell you something, people. On the street, you can never be late. Sign of disrespect. I remember one time I was late. There was so much traffic on the Belt Parkway. I'm going into Brooklyn, and I got there late. No excuse. Hey, you got a meeting. Sleep here the night before if you got it. No excuse. You're never, ever late. You have a meeting at 8 o'clock. You better be there at 7:30. I was never late again. So that is a big thing among people. And you know what? It is disrespectful in a way to be continuously late. It happens sometimes. But if you're continuously late and you're known to be late for a meeting, it's a sign of disrespect. You shouldn't do that. Got to be on time, so make it happen. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant line and a brilliant scene. And I thought Pacino delivered it brilliantly. Though it has a reputation for being contemplative, downbeat, and also particularly long, true, Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, which by the way is on Netflix, is by no means a slog to sit through, nor is it 100% depressing. It's not. The story revolving around a hitman and his involvement in the disappearance of union boss Jimmy Hoffa is in many ways a tragic one, of course. It ended in a death. But the more somber moments are balanced throughout with some comedy. And this was comedic. I thought it was. A consistent source of that is the rivalry between Hoffa and a mobster known as Tony Pro, with a meeting between the two going wrong before it even starts on account of Tony Pro's lateness. Al Pacino's Hoffa is especially impatient, with his observation about the message behind keeping someone waiting standing out as one of the highlights of a scene that's already a highlight in The Irishman. By the way, The Irishman, some truth to it, Frank Sheeran was not involved in the killing of Jimmy Hoffa. So brilliant scene, brilliant line. That's number 10. Let's move on. Okay, this one I bet you nobody's going to get because it's an older movie, but let me say it. Some of you my age, you may realize it. You slap me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize. Think about that. You slap me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize. What a gangster quote that is. And that's from, anybody guess the movie? You probably can't. Let me give it to you. That was James Cagney's line in Angels with Dirty Faces, and that was released in 1938. If you haven't seen it, brilliant film. It's in black and white, but Cagney was brilliant back then. Different kind of way they carried themselves. It wasn't really mafia type. It was just a gangster, but brilliant. You slap me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize. Brilliant line. Angel with Dirty Faces is an old school gangster movie that still holds up well, benefiting from the fact that it stars the likes of James Cagney and Humphrey Bogart, of course. Humphrey Bogart, come on. It's a film that contrasts the lives of two men who were once childhood friends, with one of them becoming involved in a life of crime as he matures, and the other choosing to devote his life to joining the priesthood. And it's not James Cagney that's the priest. Let me tell you, it's Humphrey Bogart. Brilliant film. You got to watch it. Cagney, always great at playing a wise guy, has an iconic response to someone threatening to slap him. And it's a line that's held up in relevance thanks to being borrowed by Quentin Tarantino in Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs, another brilliant film. Tarantino, I think he's a little off, but he's brilliant. Brilliant director, brilliant writer, no doubt. Tarantino's feature film directorial debut, it's Harvey Keitel's Mr. White, who drops a near identical line in the movie's opening scene. You shoot me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize. Just a great classic line. Where are you going to think of something like that? But is it gangster? Top gangster stuff. You better believe it. So that's number 9. Let's move on to number 8. And this is a policeman giving this line. Policeman, what's in the car? Turkish, that's the guy. Seats and a steering wheel. Let me say that again. Policeman, what's in the car? Answer by the Turkish, seats and a steering wheel. Come on, classic stuff. What movie did that come from? Bet you can't answer that one either. It's not a notable one, but it's a great movie. Give up? It was from Snatch in the year 2000. Great movie. Though there were plenty of great British crime gangster movies that weren't directed by Guy Ritchie, brilliant director, he directs all of those films, his contributions to the genre seem to resonate in a particularly notable way. His style is defined by fast-paced editing, bursts of shocking violence, numerous characters all interacting in unpredictable ways, and lots of dark humor, all qualities that are apparent in the movie Snatch. Great movie. Narratively, much of Snatch revolves around people trying to get their hands on a stolen diamond. Really good story. And a somewhat connected story about a ruthless gangster making life hell for a boxing promoter. It's all dizzying by design, but that's okay when much of it is fun to watch and surprisingly very funny. As the above exchange demonstrates, Turkish is played by Jason Statham. I love Jason Statham. I think he's terrific. I love all his movies. He was particularly great in that one movie, I forget what it's called, with the female actress. She's so funny. When he played a comedian, undercover agent, he was brilliant in that. I never saw him in comedy before that, but Jason Statham is brilliant. And it's his unique style and voice and overall bluntness that really sells it. So go see Snatch, classic stuff. Only in a gangster movie will you find that. All right, let's go on to number 7. This is brilliant. I got to tell you, he was so brilliant in this movie. One of us had to die. With me, it tends to be the other guy. Come on, who is that? Come on, you gangster buffs, you got to know who said that. You can't forget a line like that. One of us had to die. With me, it tends to be the other guy. Who is it? Give up? Come on, keep going. I think you're going to get it. Giving you a chance. All right, you give up. The movie Departed, Jack Nicholson. What a role he played in that movie. Unbelievable. You could easily classify The Departed as one of Martin Scorsese's most thrilling movies. As though it does have a premise that involves plenty of crime and gangsters, it's a little more narratively dense than some of his looser character-focused crime films, like Mean Streets. The Departed is dense, moves very fast, and follows an undercover cop infiltrating a prominent gang while a member of that gang also infiltrates the police. It's a movie that marks the only time Scorsese's directed Jack Nicholson, and like Nicholson tends to do, he steals much of The Departed, absolutely, and gets some of the film's best lines. Remember when he's got the hand and he's showing it to what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's holding the hand that he had cut off from somebody. Brilliant film. Remember? Unbelievable. And only he can pull it off the way he did. It was funny, but it was dead serious. Frank Costello gets some great boastful dialogue throughout, and those lines, coupled with his bizarre and alarming behavior, make him rank up there as one of Nicholson's best villains alongside the Joker and The Shining's Jack Torrance. Let me tell you something. You know, Jack Nicholson hasn't been around for a while, but man, his movies are brilliant. There's a guy that can do anything. He's comedic. He's scary. In The Shining, he scared the heck out of you. You know, in The Joker, come on, he was brilliant. He was funny. It was just a brilliant, brilliant guy. And in The Departed, unbelievable. Let me give you the line again. One of us had to die. With me, tends to be the other guy. And I got to tell you something. Gangsters have some classic lines. I'll never forget when I was on trial. And, I was the lead defendant. Giuliani put me on trial. It was a big racketeering case. It was a big Shylocking case. We have supposedly lent money to guys at usurious rates. When they didn't pay, we beat them up. I beat the case. There was a lot of nonsense involved. But some of the witnesses that got on the stand and made statements, we, as the defendants, were cracking up. We were laughing at them. They don't even know they're funny. But the lines that they delivered from the witness stand was so funny. Guys on the street are funny, I got to tell you. But that was a great one. That was number 7. Let's move on. Everybody and their brother knows this line, and of course it was brilliant. There's no guesswork involved in here. I'm going to make an offer he can't refuse. Come on. The Godfather, obviously we know who that was. Brilliant, brilliant film. You can't really talk about iconic gangster movies without at least briefly bringing up The Godfather, and similarly, it's hard to talk about great quotes from this subgenre without talking about the legendary Best Picture winning crime epic. Brilliant movie, one of the most brilliant movies of all time, no doubt. The first movie introduces the Corleone family exceedingly well, revolving around an aging mob boss's various sons, none of whom seem poised to take over the criminal empire he's built once he's gone. Well, it's not always a son taking over the father's empire. That's fictional. It doesn't always happen that way. As a matter of fact, rarely does it happen that way. Rarely. But in the movie it did, and he pulled it off brilliantly. Marlon Brando's Vito Corleone is obviously a character for the ages, no doubt, demonstrating charisma, loyalty, empathy, and ruthlessness, sometimes all within one scene. How do you pull that off? All those emotions in one scene. And he pulled it off brilliantly. Marlon Brando's a brilliant actor, was a brilliant actor. It's possible to believe that someone like him could have achieved what he's shown to have done, and nothing really sums up the more ruthless side of his character, as well as the legendary line, "I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse." You know what that means? I got to take a glass of wine. You know what? Whenever I watch these movies, I do drink a glass of my wine quite often, Franzese wine. There's nothing more relaxing than, having a nice dinner, watching a movie with your better half, and having a sip of wine. People, I got to tell you, this is good. It's Areni, and it's delicious. It's the mother of Pinot Noir. It's very light, balanced, but yet it's hearty. It's got a hearty taste to it. Just brilliant. But I enjoy it when I'm watching movies. You know what? Think of that line. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. Basically, he's saying he doesn't even know what is going to be happening to him. He's going to take the deal. End of story. Or there are going to be consequences. There's so much stated in that line. Brilliantly written, but brilliantly delivered. He didn't get mad. It was just matter of fact. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. He was so positive that he was going to win. unbelievable. You know, that kind of confidence, it's admirable. I have to say that. You know, I know it's a gangster, Michael, don't. It's still admirable to have that kind of confidence. Whether it be in a legitimate world, you need it when you're on the streets. I'm telling you, confidence is a big factor. And obviously you need it in the business world. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse. So nonchalant, but he knows how it's gonna end up. Brilliant movie, brilliant line, amazing. And that was number 6. Let's move on to number 5. I think you're gonna get this one. Brilliant movie, but another classic film, and it's delivered by the same person as before. I'm giving you hints on that. You know who that might be? Made It, Ma, Top of the World. Made It, Ma, Top of the World. Remember? James Cagney, he's up by the the oil thing up there, and he's talking to his mother. He had this fascination with his mother throughout the film. Delivered it brilliantly, and it's from White Heat, 1949. Brilliant film if you haven't seen it. James Cagney, just brilliant. One final and explosive last hurrah for the golden age of Hollywood gangster movie. White Heat is arguably James Cagney's best gangster movie, which is really saying something. He plays a criminal who breaks out of prison, throws himself right back into a life of crime, assembling a gang and setting out to execute a grand robbery. Naturally, this has severe and increasingly dramatic consequences. Brilliant movie. The best line of White Heat comes right near the end, so while describing it might sound like it could be a spoiler, it's not too surprising that a gangster movie like White Heat ends the way it does. Made It, Ma, Top of the World, is the final thing Cagney's author Cody Jarrett says before being consumed by a huge explosion during his fiery last stand. It's an unbelievably effective way to conclude a wild, for its time, gangster film. Brilliant movie. Again, Cagney, a brilliant actor. Those 2 films that he made, Angels with Dirty Faces and White Heat, brilliant. Another one, Manhattan Melodrama. Terrific movie. Again, Cagney goes the life of crime, and somebody that he grew up with becomes a DA and ends up prosecuting him, and they still had a friendship. Brilliant movie, Manhattan Melodrama. So you got Manhattan Melodrama, you got White Heat, and you got Angels with Dirty Faces. Go and look at them. Classic movies, you'll love them. And what a great line. I remember his delivery, because he loved his ma. He had a fascination with his ma. Really loved her. Okay, so that was number 5. Let's go to number 4. This was great, too. Funny, but great. From now on, I want you to put an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. Got to remember that, right? Who said it? Robert De Niro, the movie Casino. From now on, I want you to put an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. And remember the chef standing there and saying, do you know how much time that's going to take? With that kind of dumbfounded look on his face. And De Niro said, I don't care. An equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. Brilliant. Casino is another compelling gangster movie directed by Martin Scorsese, notably one that stars some of his favorite actors, including Robert De Niro and an ever-angry and terrifying Joe Pesci. It's also something of an epic owing to how sprawling it is, the fact it plays out over almost 3 hours, and because of how many characters come in and out of this rise and fall narrative about the mob ruling Las Vegas through owning its lucrative casinos. And yes, look, there's no question about it. The mob built Las Vegas. We start with Bugsy Siegel. The New York guys got involved. The Midwestern guys got involved. We built the casinos. We used the union money in many things. We built it. And I'm going to tell you this, it was a lot better during our day than it is today. And a lot of people say that. I'm not just saying it. Like The Irishman, Casino can be an emotionally intense and heavy film that nevertheless has a few memorable comedic beats to break up the tension every now and then. De Niro's Ace Rothstein has a particularly memorable outburst at a baker who had the audacity to not put an equal number of blueberries in every single muffin. A funny moment that does also speak to the petty and controlling nature of the criminal figure at Casino's center. You consider that controlling because you want an equal number of blueberries in each muffin? Well, when he was sitting down at the table, he saw one muffin had a lot of blueberries, the other muffin didn't have any. As a consumer and a guy that loves blueberry muffins, I'd be a little upset if there wasn't enough blueberries in my muffin. So I think that was a good line. It made sense, but it was delivered like a true gangster. Love it. That was number 4. Let's move on to number 3. Everybody knows this. I think. There's so many good lines in this film, but see if you remember this one. So say goodnight to the bad guy. Come on. The last time you're going to see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you. Think about it. I'll give you a hint. Restaurant scene. Guy's a little bit drunk. He's angry. Yells at his wife. Causes a scene in the restaurant. Then gets up and everybody's looking at him. And he makes that line again. So say goodnight to the bad guy. Come on. The last time you're going to see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you. Scarface, Al Pacino. My wife just chimed in. By the way, all this beautiful photography that you see and all this terrific video, this is my wife. She's done it all, and for the past several years. So if you're appreciating the backdrop, let's give a high five to my wife. She's terrific. And every once in a while, she'll chime in and give me some corrections and say something, and she always has something great to add. So Scarface is a movie that unleashes Al Pacino at his biggest, no doubt. And some would argue his best. I think it was his best film, that and Donnie Brasco. He was terrific as Lefty Ruggiero. He just killed it. He was terrific. Scarface 2, probably his best movie. He goes all out and then some when depicting ambitious small-time criminal turned kingpin Tony Montana. A Cuban refugee who arrives in Miami soon makes a name for himself as a fearsome gangster. He was ruthless. A spectacular rise is then followed by an equally spectacular fall, playing out over almost all 3 bombastic, stylish, and enthralling hours. The script, courtesy of Oliver Stone, keeps up with Brian De Palma's larger-than-life direction and Pacino's over-the-top performance with countless quotable lines that have become iconic. Perhaps none more than that part about a small acquaintance being greeted. Yet just as memorable is Montana's drunken outburst at a restaurant late in the film, feeling like a postmodern take on stage monologue, befitting Scarface being something of a modern Shakespearean tragedy. Did you ever hear it described that way? Tony Montana, Shakespearean tragedy? It's more on the nose than all the cocaine scene towards the film's end, but it works wonders. And how could you say hello to my little friend, remember? Unbelievable movie. That was the way it ended at the end when he's fighting how many guys with his machine gun. Classic. Just a brilliant movie. I know it's violent. Ladies, don't get mad at me, but it happens to be a brilliant film. All right, that was number 3. Let's move on to number 2. Come on. Everybody and their sister knows this one. Guaranteed. It's been said over and over and over again, and brilliant by a brilliant actor. I'm funny? Funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, like I amuse you? I make you laugh? I'm here to effing amuse you. I don't curse on this thing. Of course, Joe Pesci and Goodfellas, we got it. How many times have you heard that repeated? I've said it myself. Funny how? And by the way, that wasn't in the script. Pesci made it up. He's seen it once before, something like that. He gave it to Scorsese, and Scorsese said, put it in. Turned out to be one of the most iconic, brilliant scenes ever. Similarly iconic, within the pantheon of gangster movies to The Godfather, Goodfellas, they mentioned me in that film, I knew all of those guys, is a front-to-back incredible film, arguably the greatest thing within the filmography of Martin Scorsese. It's considered one of the greatest films of all times. Perhaps Tony Montana was right when he said people were never going to see a bad guy like him again because Goodfellas was released some years later and provided a more grounded and perhaps honest look at the life as a gangster. And it was a pretty honest depiction of our life, no doubt about it. Not everything was true, but the way the story went and the way the characters portrayed themselves, that was pretty accurate, pretty darn accurate, I have to say it. That being said, Goodfellas is still immensely stylish and slick from a cinematic perspective. It's just that the typical rise and fall story it tells has a little more nuance and more complexity, which is what helps make it fascinating and timeless. And then, of course, there's also a never better Joe Pesci with his entire rant during the funny house scene being the stuff of legends. And yes, it is legendary. Unbelievable. Come on. Think about that line. Funny how. Think about how, and it was a joke. But look at how everybody got scared because they knew what kind of a maniac he was. Was he going to get up and shoot, Henry Hill at that point? What was he going to do? Was he going to knock the table over, throw the glasses over? It was all, nobody knew what he was going to do. And all of a sudden, the way he broke into that, out of nowhere, broke into that line. I'm funny? Funny how? Like I'm a clown? Like I amuse you? what the hell is so effing funny about me? And the way he said it, unbelievable. And then, of course, they break out in laughter again because he was just a brilliant film, brilliant line. There were other brilliant lines in that film, but Joe Pesci, he is the typical gangster without a doubt. All right, now we get to number one. This may surprise people. I thought about it a little bit, but you know what? I believe it's accurate, okay? I don't feel I have to wipe everybody out, Tom. Just my enemies. Who is that?
Michael Corleone.
You got it, honey. My wife just said it. Michael Corleone. And of course, the movie was what? The Godfather. We all know it. All right, let me say it again and just think about the setting. This was in Godfather Part 2. But there's Al Pacino, Michael Corleone, very calm. The only time he lost his temper was maybe 2 times, if you remember. You know, when they shot him at his house and he was very upset. When he got really upset with his wife, when he found out she had an abortion. You know, only a couple of times that he loses cool, but he just stayed calm most of the time. And think of this line, because he's talking with this consigliere there, Tom, and he says, I don't feel I have to wipe everybody out, Tom, just my enemies. Nice and calm, matter of fact, very direct, very distinct, and we knew his character. Brilliant. Well, 1972's The Godfather was pretty much perfect movie. And they've said that, a perfect movie. You know, I believe a movie is perfect when every scene, every line, every scene keeps you so involved. There's no downtime whatsoever. Every scene, whether it be action, whether it be emotional in a love scene, or whether 2 people are just talking, you're so into the movie that every scene just moves and moves and moves. And you know, when the movie's over, you're saying it's over already, even if it's a 3-hour movie. That happened with The Godfather. Happened with Godfather 2 also. Not so much with The Irishman. That dragged in spots, you know. But Godfather 1 and 2, come on. You know, it's over already. The Godfather 2 that made an already epic film feel like one part of an overall and perhaps never equaled crime saga. Serving as both a prequel and a sequel, The Godfather Part 2 shows how Vito Corleone came to America, started to build his empire, all the while also showing how Al Pacino's Michael Corleone fails to continue running it properly the way his father managed. Michael's moral descent may have started by the end of The Godfather. And you do have to say he had a moral descent. Listen, you know, I got to tell you this, people. So many times people have said, oh, you have a story similar to The Godfather. Did they copy your story because you loved your father? You followed him into the life. They did not copy my story. That was written before I was even involved in the mob life. But there are similarities. I was going to school. He was, in the military. He went and followed his father's footsteps because his father was shot at, and he killed the guy that shot his father, remember? And then he went off to Italy. With me, I left school because my father got a 50-year prison sentence. I wanted to help him out. My dad thought the best way to help him out was to become a member of his life. I got in there, and then we both rose in the ranks. So there's similarities between the story, but it's not in any way based upon my life. Michael's moral descent may have started by the end of The Godfather 1, but it's painfully apparent just who he is throughout much of The Godfather Part 2, with the film being about how his coldness and his ruthlessness isolates him and makes him lose almost everything that matters. Lost his wife, really was losing his family. He became very cold. He became very ruthless. You know, I often thought because he was in the military, he was in the war. He was a war hero in a way. You know, did that coldness or did that experience make him ruthless? You know, who knows? Or was it the mob life itself? His claim that I don't feel I have to wipe everybody out, Tom, just my enemies, is impactful for so many reasons. Perhaps the principal one being that his actions throughout the story, ironically enough, pretty much leave him stranded in life with no one but his enemies. And that's true. He basically lost everybody close to him. And, you know, that's a sad part of that life. You know, the reason I say the mob life is an evil lifestyle, and I'm not calling the men evil. I'm calling the mob life bad and evil because families get destroyed. The families of made members get destroyed. And in the end of the day, guys end up in prison with nobody, you know, or they end up dead, or they end up broke, or they end up just everybody being alienated from them. It happens very often, people. Any lifestyle that causes that to a guy, that causes that to a family, is a bad lifestyle. It's something that I realized. I experienced it with my own family that was destroyed because of my father's involvement in that life. So I get it. I really get it. I get what was being said there. So that's it. So I don't know if you're going to agree with the fact that that was, the greatest line. That was number one. But you got to agree with all these lines. They were terrific. So I want to hear what you have to say. Let me know how you feel about it, what you think, and if you think there's another one. And I said this in the beginning. I want to say that, I want to give you two other lines that I thought were just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They weren't really even mob. Well, one was a mob movie, one wasn't. And one, my friend Chaz Palminteri had many brilliant lines in The Bronx Tale. I said it in the beginning, but do you remember that? Now you can't leave. Remember that bar scene when the bikers got a little bit out of hand and they started smashing things? And before that, Sonny, played by Chaz, had told them, behave yourself and you're welcome in my bar, no problem. And they made like they were being respectful. And they said, yeah, no problem. And then as soon as they turned around, they smashed the glasses and they got rowdy. And Chaz just looked at them, Sonny did, expressionless, and said, now you can't leave.
Now you can't leave.
And he locked the door. And what happened afterwards? The bikers got a beating. But you felt the emotion. And I loved the way the dialogue came afterwards, the voiceover. When, the guy was saying, uh-oh, now you realize you made a mistake. Just the way he delivered the line, you realize you made a mistake. It was so intense, a brilliant line, without a doubt, from my dear friend Chaz Palminteri. One other line that I love from a brilliant movie, one of the greatest movies of all time. Had that been made today, who knows how much it would have grossed. But a brilliant line, and I'll set it up. Remember the setup? Turns around to his wife and says, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Rhett Butler. And remember how Scarlett then realized she treated him poorly throughout the entire movie. And then she realized that she was in love with him. And he loved her. He really loved her. And she finally realized towards the end that I really do love this guy. I really do love this man. And Clark Gable, who played, thank you, Cam, again, Clark Gable. How do I forget these names? Brilliant actor. Clark Gable, who loved this woman. And she wanted somebody else, a guy that nobody understood why she wanted him. He was married to her best friend, Ashley, his name was. But, throughout the whole movie, Rhett Butler, Clark Gable, is chasing his wife. And she really don't want to have anything to do with him. And then in the end, she realizes, I really do love him. I really do want him. That iconic scene when they're on the stairway. And she's chasing him because he said, no, I tried. But I know, you wanted Ashley, you didn't want me. I tried, I gave you everything I had. And he did throughout the movie. I loved you, I did everything. And she's pleading with him and begging him and pleading with him. And he's kind of walking down that stairs. He's got the hat on. And, he's a good-looking guy. And they get at the doorway and she's pleading and she's crying. Anything, Rhett, just, take me back. And he looks at her. What am I going to do, she said. What am I going to do? And he looks at her and says, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Tips his hat and walks off. Unbelievable scene, I gotta say it. So well written, so well delivered by both actors. I mean, they were both terrific. And I have so many more. Maybe we can get into it. If you really like this, we can do it. I have so many more movies that I just love the lines. They were brilliant. You don't forget them. They were terrific. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this, people. We have some fun sometimes. Everything doesn't have to be so deep and so heavy. We don't have to get into politics and do all the, the hard stuff in the movies. But I enjoyed this. Hope you did also. And let me know in your comments. If you want to do some more stuff like this, I'll do it. Like I said, I'm looking for some other movies to review. And give me your suggestions, please. Any movies that you want me to review. And maybe we do movies that have some crime involved in it, but since I was a criminal at one point, and I have, some relation to that, I can give you my take on it, tell you whether it's real, whether it's not real, whether I think it would happen that way or wouldn't happen that way. Give me some suggestions. We'll take them for sure. So that's it for today, my friends. How do I always leave you? Same way. I promise you it's never going to change. Be safe. Our country's getting safer. The border, secured. That's it. We got a secure border. People in communities and neighborhoods all over town, all over the country rather, are thankful for that. He kept his promise. Got to say that. So be safe. Be healthy. RFK, he's already starting with, the school lunches. I think he's improving them already. Parents are happy about that. Be safe. Be healthy. Get healthy, people. Got to do that. We have one life. Live it to the fullest. Your health is important. Be safe, be healthy, and yes, I really mean this. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for the support you've all been giving me. No, I don't take it for granted. No, I appreciate it. No, I thank you for all of you that subscribe to my channels. I appreciate it very much. So God bless all of you, your family, your loved ones, your community, your neighborhoods, and please, God bless this country, and God bless the world. We want peace in this world, and we want our country to prosper. I'll see you next time. Take care.